Don't stop when you are tired, stop when you are done. Good day everyone. We are the Group 4 of Bachelor of Elementary Education 2B student and here to discuss the lesson planning.
A pleasant day to all of us. I am Baclea-an from Group 4 and I will tackle about the definition of lesson planning. In order to understand what a lesson plan is, it is important to fully understand the concept of a lesson. A lesson is a single activity or a series of activities designed by the teacher so as to achieve one or more instructional objectives determined or desired in promoting positive change in the learner. A lesson is thus a period of instruction or contact between the teacher and the learners, which is totally devoted to a prior identified, specified, and single limited title, skill, content, or idea. Lesson planning is the activity which the teacher performs before the actual lesson takes place. A lesson plan is a detailed description of the instructional strategies and learning activities to be performed during the teaching and learning process. Planning for a lesson is a teacher's detailed description of a lesson which is prepared before they start teaching. It covers the learning trajectory and course of action for each lesson taught and acts as a comprehensive daily guide for what students are going to learn. It also gives insight into how it will be taught. It is useful to think about how a student's capability can be measured, as this really shows how useful the lesson was and what needs to be improved and worked upon in future lessons. The plan itself will vary based on each teacher's individual preference, what subject is being covered in the lesson, as well as the needs of each student in the class. Again, I am Baclea-an from Group 4.
I am Donalyn C. Baclea-an here to discuss parts and its function of lesson planning. There are 6 main components of any successful lesson. You need to rethink of lesson plan if you miss one of them. The most effective lesson plans have 6 key parts. First, lesson objectives. Second, related requirements. Third, lesson materials. Fourth, lesson procedure. Fifth, assessment method. 6. Lesson reflection. Lessons objectives. Lesson objectives list what student will be able to do after completing the lesson. These objectives let you easily tell if your lesson has effectively taught your student new concepts and skills. Best view of lesson objectives as goals of your class and students. One of the most popular goal-setting strategy is the SMART criteria, which ensure goals are focused. Second, related requirements. Related requirements are national, state, or school standards that indicates what you need to teach in a class. If you teach a CTE course, you likely need to tie your lessons to certification requirements as well. Every lesson you teach should help you to hit these requirements. Listen them in your lesson plans, help you satisfy those requirements while focusing on the end goal of your class.
Good day everyone, my name is Jason Anigaw from Group 4. I'm going to continue the report of Miss Baclea-an about parts and its function. Next, we have lesson materials. The third section on your lesson plan is the list materials that you need to teach the lesson and measure student outcomes. This section also prepares you to deliver your lessons every day. Next, we have lesson procedure. The lesson procedure is an in-depth explanation of how the lesson will progress in the classroom. The lesson procedure is essentially step-by-step instructions that walk you through everything from the time students enter the classroom until the bell rings at the end of the period. The next, we have assessment method. Write some sentences on the board or distribute printed papers to see whether the objectives were achieved or not, and to check whether students learn or not according to the objectives. If not, you should reteach the lesson using different techniques.
And the last but not the least, we have lesson reflection. reflection portion of a lesson plan encourages teachers to take notes on how to improve a lesson after it has been completed. By this point, your lesson has clear objectives, a plan for teaching, and a way to assess student learning.
Again, this is JC Lanigao from Group 4. Thank you.
Next is topic. The topic of your lesson plan consists of what subject you are focusing on for the duration of the lesson. The topic is typically a short section of a lesson plan, as you are just listing the subject of the lesson's focus. Next is reference. Sources of information about language and about teaching that can be referred to for assistance in lesson preparation are all called reference resources. They can include references materials like dictionaries, grammar books, and articles about methodology in the magazines of teachers. The teacher's book that accompanies a course book which has the answer and teaching ideas, and even certain websites, which can be found on the internet. Sometimes, reference resources can include people and are consulted by knowing where and how we can find the information we need. Make a list of all many reasons as possible that you can think of for making use of reference resources. Next is procedure. The procedure is the body of your lesson plan, the ways in which you'll share information with students, and the methods you'll use to help them assume a measure of a mastery of that material. Next is review. You should make it clear where the lesson is going, what you intend to accomplish, and the signal what is coming in the lesson. Frequently, in this segment of the lesson, you can have a journal entry which connects in with the literature you might be discussing. Or you can do a quick review of what you discussed in the previous class. Or you might have a quick write or some kind of assessment to let you know where your students are with material you've covered. Next is motivation. Motivation is a psychological state within each student of wanting to learn what the instruction wants to teach. As much, motivation should be a mere gimmick at the lesson start. It must be an attitude sustained throughout the lessons. When lapses occur, the lesson cannot continue according to the plan. Next is presentation. A presentation is a spoken communication made in a prepared and formal way. You can give a presentation to one person or hundreds of people or thousands. The skills required can be learned and are very, very much same regardless of the size of the group. Next is discussion. Discussion methods are a variety of forums for open-ended collaboration, exchange of ideas among a teacher and the student, or amongst student for the purpose of furthering students' thinking, learning, problem solving, understanding, or literary appreciation. And lastly is generalization. Generalization is the pace of learning where behavior occur under different conditions other than those taught, to help students maintain skills being taught and to encourage use of the skills in a variety of situations. Generalization strategies are included in the lesson plan.
Good day everyone, I am Charmin D. Pelande from BEED-2B, and now I am going to discuss to you about the best example of a lesson plan. The next example is the detailed lesson plan format. In making lesson plan, the first thing that you must consider is the objective. So, the objective is the focal point of a lesson plan. Objectives are the foundation upon which you can build lesson and assessments and instruction that you can prove meet your overall course or lesson goals. Think of objectives as tools you use to make sure you reach your goals. Next is the subject matter. It is the subject of discussion or the subject of knowledge being imparted. The next is the topic. The topic of your lesson plan consists of what subject you are focusing on for the duration of the lesson. The topic is typically a short section of the lesson plan, as you are just listing the subject of the lesson's focus. Next is the references. So when we say references, it is to acknowledge the contribution of other writers and researchers in your work. Next is the materials. Materials are the tools used in educational lessons, which includes active learning and assessment. Next is the procedure. It is essentially step-by-step instructions that you walk through everything from the time students enter the classroom until the bell rings at the end of the period. After that, we will move on to preliminary activity, which it starts with prayer. Next is the checking of attendance. The next is the developmental activity. So before starting a new lesson, you must first review about the discussion you tackled yesterday or the other day. Next is the motivation. The next is the presentation, which it is the 4A's method. First is the activity. Activity should be directly related to the learning objective of the course and provide experiences that will enable students to engage in, practice, and gain feedback on specific progress towards those objectives. Next is the analysis. The analysis is the part that addresses the lesson's effectiveness. To what extent did the students meet the objectives stated in the lesson plan? Let's move on to the next, which is the abstraction. It is the act of looking at the big picture. It's stepping back from nitpicking details and thinking of things as a singular object. Next is application. Application provides activities that help learners apply their learning to new situations or context beyond the lesson and connect it to their own lives. So, as a teacher, you must choose activities that learners can relate to or have expressed concern about. And after that, you make evaluation, because it is all about comparing a student's achievement with other students or with a set of standards. Effective assessment is a continuous process. It's not simply something that's done at the conclusion of a unit of study or at the end of a lesson. Evaluation must be a collaborative activity between teachers and students. Then lastly is the assignment, which talks about the task given to students by their teachers and tutors to complete in a defined time. They can also be referred to as the work given to someone as a part of learning. So after the discussion, you will give an assignment to your students so that you could be able to know if they learned something from your lesson. Again, I am Charmin D. Pelande from BEED-2B.
Advantage and disadvantages. Advantage and disadvantage of lesson planning. Here is a short list of pros and cons of lesson planning. Some advantages and disadvantages of lesson planning. Advantages of lesson planning. It inspires the teachers to improve the further lessons. It helps the teacher in evaluating his teaching. It develops self-confidence in the teacher. Proper care is taken and take into consideration the level and previous knowledge of students. The teaching matter is organized in a time frame. It inspires the teacher to ask proper and important questions. It provides guidance to the teacher as to what and whom he should teach.
It helps in creating the interest of students towards the lesson. Good lessons must be planned because it helps to make your lessons clear and well-timed. So meaning the students can be active and interested towards the lesson. Next, it stimulates the teacher to think in an organized manner. Some teachers develop a creative introduction to the topic to stimulate interest and encourage the students. They can use some variety of approaches to engage the students, like real-world example, short video clip, and historical event. Next, it helps the teacher to understand the objectives properly. Teachers can help to understand the objectives properly because objectives provide a sense of mission and purpose. The more you are aware of your mission and purpose in teaching, the more you will be able to inspire your students to learn from it. So as a future educator, lesson planning can help the teacher to be well prepared and be aware of what he or she intends on teaching the student. To create one, we need to do the effective lesson planning course.
Limitations of lesson planning. In new or odd situations, teachers feel themselves helpless. Sometimes, simple matters become complicated. More time is required to plan a lesson. Teacher cannot work or teach independently. There is lack of flexibility in lesson planning. The teaching process becomes more difficult. Lesson plan are the best thing to do before you go into a classroom discussion, and that the fact that I see more pros and cons to consider confirm my inclination to like them. If you are prepared and have taken the time to make a plan, you are ready to go in there and work you plan, without forgetting that there are two inevitable truths in life. All of us are going to die and no plan is going to be developed exactly the way you plan.